Hey everybody, after a brief interruption, I'm back to Proust. This is part 5. So I'm back from Serbia. It was a great trip. I had a lot of fun, worked really hard, saw a lot of cool things. And I feel like the thing about these overseas trips is you think you're going to get a lot of reading done on the plane. 10-hour flight over there, 10-hour flight back, tons of time to finish books, right? Never seems to work out that way for me. On the way over there, there's so many interruptions. People come by with a drink cart every 5 minutes. They want to collect your garbage. They want to give you food, inedible, horrible airplane food that we still haven't managed to make decent after all these years. You think that, with technology being in the state it is, we'd get some decent airplane food at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. You're distracted. It's just hard to concentrate on that. And then on the way back, I'm so exhausted that I just sleep the whole plane, and I don't get any reading done at all. So I really was hoping to get a lot of reading done on the plane. Didn't happen. But on my week back, I've been working hard on Marcel Proust, and I think I've gotten a lot done. So let's get right into that. Last time I had finished the second volume, I've started the third. It's The Guermante's Way, book 3 out of 7, and I read the first half of it. It's divided into 2 chapters. Each chapter is like over 300 pages long. So I don't know if the chapter is really the right word for them, but that's the way they're organized. And so a lot of this book is focused on high society and the narrator's attempt to ingratiate himself. His family has moved into a spacious apartment in Paris next to this aristocratic family, the Guermantes, and he becomes fascinated with the Duchess and tries to make her acquaintance. And a lot of the book is about his friendship with her nephew. His name is Robert St. Loup, and they spend a lot of time talking, figuring out how to get closer to her, and spend more time in this high society artsy-fartsy thing. It's fairly disgusting just watching these people being snobs and being real snooty about their high society position in life. The narrator still wants to be a writer, and he still hasn't written anything. He has writer's block. He can't figure out how to do it, which I have fairly little sympathy for. I think the thing about writing is you just got to dive in and do it. Even if it's terrible, you just fill up a blank page and do something. It's hard for me to have sympathy for someone who wants to write but doesn't actually ever put any words on paper. I don't think that's how you go about it. Another big theme in this half of the book is that I've noticed is sound. You remember in the very first book, the theme was smell. He smelled this tea and biscuit, and it brought him back. The aroma brought him back to his childhood. And there's a lot of talk about sound in this book here. There's a whole part about speaking to his grandmother on the telephone and hearing her voice in the disembodied distance and the very nature of the telephone, and how different it is hearing someone's voice in isolation when you can't see their face. There's a whole section about when you're sick and your ears are clogged up and you can't hear anything around you, how the world changes in your perception. So there's this recurring theme that he goes back to of the various senses and how they relate to the world. A big part of this book is dealing with the Dreyfus Affair, which I had to look up because I'd never heard of it. But the Dreyfus Affair was a big scandal that rocked Paris in the 1890s about basically a Jewish soldier who was falsely imprisoned and blamed for revealing French military secrets. And it goes into the question of racism and anti-Semitism and law and order and justice. And it was a sharply divided Parisian society for about a decade in the 1890s. And they talk about it a lot in this book, which is fairly interesting. But I think there's a bit of an anachronism here too. I'm not sure if the narrator has his time, or if the writer has his timeline correct, because there's one part where they mention the composer Franz Liszt, who happens to be my favorite composer, and I was really excited to see him appear in the book. But they talk about him as if he's just been over and they've been talking with him. The Dreyfus Affair started in 1894, and I happen to know that Franz Liszt died in 1886, so I feel like I caught an error in the book in terms of the timeline. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but I thought that was interesting. So I'll be plunging ahead with the second half next week. I hope to finish the second half and move on to the 4th book in the series. I'm still enjoying it. It's very rich and detailed. I feel like I'm finally getting a sense of the characters, because there are so many characters and they have these foreign names that take a while to get used to. And so the first two books, you're still kind of learning who they are. Now I feel a little more comfortable with them. I feel like I'm getting to know them a little bit better. There are flashbacks that goes back to the narration that happened in the first book, and so you keep hearing the same events kind of revisited, and it solidifies your understanding of who these people are and how they relate to the narrator in his life. So I am enjoying that. I'm interested to see where it goes. There's been a striking absence of romance in this book. The first two were so focused on the narrator's various fascinations with women. And in this case, he's fascinated with this Duchess of Gramont, but she's, it's not in a romantic way. It's in a, fascinated by her poise and her grace and her position in society. So that's a little bit different. But I'll be plunging ahead, and I'll let you know how the rest of this book turns out next week. I'm hoping to finish the whole series within about 8 weeks from now, I think. I have about 2,000 pages left to go. So if I can keep on a good schedule, I should be able to finish in 8 to 10 weeks and get all that reading done. We'll see. I've been pretty busy, but I'm going to try to read as much as I can and finish this off so I can review the entire thing, which I don't think too many people have done because it's just so difficult to get through such a long book. So I'll be back next week, and I'll be back tomorrow on a different topic that I have yet to determine. I've been Logan Albright. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel.